website, and since then I have then relaxed a little and gotten the right people to build my second website. So I'm Emma Davis. I am now a veterinary career coach, and my website is Veterinary Careers. I could only get the .com.au, but I've got an audience that I'm hoping you're watching in the UK and in the States as well, and Canada. So do you really know your dog? So this is the thing of today is, do you really know your vet? And if you think about vets, I want to crack it open to say, well, do you actually know your dog? Who in the room's got dogs or cats? Anyone got? Okay, what have you got? What kind of breed?
Cat.
What kind of breed? What
Black.
colour? Black cat. Nice. That's good. How old?
3.
Yeah. Girl or boy? What's
Girl.
the name? Yeah. Okay. Nice girl. You like cats?
Yeah.
Get on
I
okay?
came with a girlfriend.
Yeah. And the cat lets you in the house occasionally?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've just got my first cats. They're a whole shock to me. Who else has got pets? What have you got?
I've got a 21-and-a-half-year-old Berman.
Oh my
That's a very good
goodness.
age. Wow. And they're very personable and you've got big personalities when they go in. So that's amazing. What's the name?
Max.
Max. Boy or girl?
Boy. Blonde.
Okay, beautiful. And one more in the room. Yep. What have you got?
Almost 18-month-old Jack Russell Terrier.
Yeah. Nice.
Purebred. His name's Buddy.
I feel for you. You're just settling down now. I've got a 6-month-old one, so yeah, they're gorgeous, aren't they? But,
Very
yeah.
intelligent,
Oh, good.
friendly dogs.
Yeah. And did you do puppy school with him? Did you do that kind of stuff? No.
Oh.
Okay, that's fine. I took my puppy school and humped everything. Sorry, don't tell that to the UK. We left again. So, like dogs and pets, vets are kind of the same. If I say vet to you, what do you actually think of? Like, what do you think? If I say I'm a vet, how do you think I spend my day? Anyone?
Well, either at a surgery or on the farm, one of the two.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, out in practice. Yeah. Anyone else? Spaying cats. I had to pay a vet yesterday to spay my cat. It's very, very embarrassing when you have to do that. But about to tell you that, like dogs in all different shapes and colours, that vets come in all shapes and colours as well.
Oh.
Yes. As long as I can make the IT work. So who's a real vet? Okay. And so have you ever thought, like, met me, who's been in government for 13 years, and gone, oh, so you're not a real vet anymore? If anyone's ever thought that before, then this is part of why I've become a career coach and starting to take the opportunity to talk to people and start to break that down a little bit. Because like my colleagues, the fellow here, I think he's in the World Health Organization for Animal, the OAE, World Organization for Animal Health, talking about food contamination, welfare and safety. We've got a lovely red-haired vet with a beautiful pet, and we've got someone dealing with SARS in the full kit and caboodle. They're really hot. I wore those in Papua New Guinea a fair bit to do some disease responses, and they're not fine in Papua New Guinea. It's so hot in those things, it's horrible. But so camels and the SARS, which was, I can't remember the years, back in the 90s. Now we have a lot of vets who are doing, on the far right, which is dentistry in horses, but at a really high level. So when I was in practice, I graduated in 2001, I went out and I did some horse dentistry, as vets did at that time, and I used a rasp, and I was on a horse stud, and I rasped 20 horses' teeth a day and set them back out to the paddock. Now you can do another 6-year study on how to do proper equine dentistry, and I feel for the mares that I probably didn't have that level of skills for, but nobody had that knowledge at that time. So our science is expanding off in every direction really rapidly. Fellow there is a pathologist, so he's a veterinary pathologist. This guy's got a cool job, but I hope the tiger doesn't wake up. That is like, there's zoo vets and they do all kinds of cool things. And back to our people who help our food be safe. So you want to go to the shops and be able to trust that what you're buying, and you're paying good money for in Australia, is clean, it's green, it doesn't have antibiotics in it, it wasn't like stimulated with steroids or anything to grow faster, and that likewise it was killed well, like it had a good death, so for the welfare aspects, and that it's been kept clean and beautiful so that you can eat it if you keep the use by date and have safety around that. And vets have roles in all of those spaces.
Well, they don't have any standards for pet food, though, do they, in Australia?
Oh, that's topical, yeah. They didn't have standards for pet foods, but we've just been through, some issues around that in Australia and a disease outbreak or a disease syndrome from that exact problem. So right now we are quickly getting standards for pet foods in Australia.
Yeah.
And there's a whole team of vets who are working on that as well. Likewise, all the food that we eat, we've got a crocodile vet up there. I hope she gets to do other things other than crocodiles. That would be, a full-on job. We've got people doing surgery on the spinal column of a bear. These guys on the far right are at an Ebola outbreak in somewhere in West Africa. And then there's a lot of continued community discussion around, what happened? What's going on now? Help. Somebody fix it. Somebody fix it. Anyone fix it?
Oh,
Ooh.
it's
We're back to where we started. This is going live. Hi, UK. Yeah. Anyone help me? Anyone? IT? I can fix your car. I can't fix my computer.
it's probably the cords that's not.
Helen's going to save me. So so you guys would know, in Australia we have a high level of living standards and we have some pretty vocal groups around animal welfare issues. We want to know how our food was produced. We want to know that it was produced in an ethical way and good welfare. And things like chickens in cages when they're producing eggs, and also these breeds of broilers, which is a meat breed of chickens. They got the genetics so far down one trait that these birds will outgrow their legs' capacity to hold them up. So through wanting to convert feed so efficiently that we will get the maximum meat for the food that we're putting into the birds actually outgrow their legs and the legs break. Now we don't have those strains in Australia, but that is how far we took the science in the poultry industry before we're actually coming back and putting some welfare and other considerations over it. And there's a big push from the community now, started in the UK, but it's definitely across everywhere, that we want to care about our animals, and we'll actually start to look for the RSPCA branding, and we'll pay a premium, or we'll pick up the ones that say this was ethically and produced in a way that we were happy that it was produced. So vets are right in the middle of all that, because we have the farmers who are trying to make a living, and farmers, like vets, love animals for the most part. The intensive production is another arm, like that's not traditional farming, obviously, it's a different arm. And then we've got pressures of small business. In Australia, that's becoming increasingly corporatised. And then we have the pressures on agriculture, basically. So I'm going totally off topic, but I'm just talking. So I don't know what the next thing is. But anyway, I hope that you trust that vets are not just vaccinating your cat, and like I paid for a lovely vet at Hall to spay my cat yesterday, which is a big step. It's a shock to actually get someone to do that on my cat, but at the same time I recognise I don't have a surgery, I'm not in practice anymore, and you actually need a full surgical setup to do that safely. So that's the kind of issues. So, here we go. Thank you, get it back there. So, I can't remember where I was going to go. So obviously, the common thing is the pets. That's our common, when people think vets, they think pets, and that's fantastic, and that's a real part of what we do. Okay, so we kind of, copied over that one already. Thank you. Well done. Okay, fingers crossed. So in Australia, more than 62% of households have a pet, and 38% dog and 29% cat. I don't know if that statistically works, but it was on a website somewhere, the Pet Industry Association of Australia. Plus 59% of people who don't would like to get a pet. So, we're really pet friendly. It's really interesting to get in the middle of discussions around, housing, and you can't get a rental these days if you've got a pet. And so there's all these social issues that veterinarians also play into, because there's a lot of benefits to people that you can get from having animals, like, the joy, the companionship, exercise, you know, having a happy dog rather than a grumpy husband meet you when you get home. Those kind of things, there's a lot of benefits to our health. I won't say any more about that, my husband might be watching. Benefits to health, and again, vets are kind of look to for that kind of stuff because we're right there in the thick of it, in the consult room with your pet, and we want to do the right thing by your 21-year-old cat and your beloved new cat or your pup, and yeah, so it's some complex things. So on top of that, so we're similar to the States in our pet ownership, and the UK has a little bit less. But meanwhile, I'll just make the point that everyone's kind of forgotten about all the food aspects and the agriculture aspects of things. And now, when you say vet, you really very much think of the lady with the stethoscope in the clinic. So when you buy a new pet, or when your daughter or son wants one, then just keep in mind that the average pet in Australia costs you $13,000 throughout its lifetime. And if you're unlucky, as I was, and your beautiful Dalmatian pup runs under your car, it can cost you $16,000 in one surgery. So think about pet insurance, which I had thankfully. But yeah, so there's all kinds of issues around, you know, we're talking today about, do you really know your vet? And when you present to a vet, you wouldn't have taken any of this in. You're just interested in your cat, you're just interested in the best outcome. Yeah. So yeah, I like this one. So this is the best thing ever to sell the veterinary role. So who do you want around in an apocalypse? Is you want a vet. Okay, think about all the things. They're a dentist, they're an anaesthetist, they're a surgeon, they're working on antimicrobial resistance, they're working on vaccinations, they're working on the whole gamut. And so this is something that the CDC in America put out to basically talk about the other roles of vets. And as they put it, you want 5 reasons you want a veterinarian on your team in a zombie apocalypse. And I don't watch many zombie apocalypse movies, but people do. And the reasons are vets have a better chance of surviving. So because we're so really good at avoiding bites of every species, so that's good. So zombies as well. Vets can provide medical care. They spend at least 4 years post-grad training to care for all species. So you looked at all those species, like a crocodile's quite different to the bear. We're not that different in body systems to other things as well. So we have an ability to problem solve. They can take care of the animals. They can make sure your food is safe, we talked about, and they can find a cure, because we're the experts who are determining the source, so finding new diseases like when Hendra virus came out in Queensland, and the control through vaccination and other things of those diseases that risk humans and animals, because there's a lot of diseases, and a lot of the emerging diseases, about 90% of them, cross over between humans and animals, so your Ebola viruses and stuff like that. Am I speaking too fast, or is this cool? Sorry. Very excited now that the thing's on, I don't want it to go off to sleep again. So, it looks really cool, hey? We've got a bright future where, you know, up here going, yay, we're awesome. And we do have a bright future, but I just wanted to, the reason I wanted to talk about do you really know your vet is that I'm just going to put out some ideas now that might crack open and get you thinking a little bit further about who vets are. So this kind of stuff, and they're watching in the UK and they're watching around the place, it makes vets really uncomfortable. They don't like talking about themselves, so I'm like the outlier. I'm like the crazy vet who's on Facebook and who's doing all this stuff, and I'm coaching people now and saying how great vets are. But if I did this, like I'm back in a government business meeting up there for the rest of the day, oh my God, like if they see this on Facebook, they'll be crying in their lunch because they're not used to anyone talking about it, okay? We just do all the good stuff, but it's a traditional profession. People, you know, have suits, very male orientated up in the higher levels. Yeah, so it's a traditional profession. Our parents also told us it was rude to talk about money, okay? So you think probably if you've got elderly cats that you look after a lot that you would have a, what do you think about vets and money? Do you have any opinions of vets and money?
It costs a lot of money, and we don't have pet insurance, and we wouldn't be able to now
So it's definitely an issue around pets, isn't it? Yeah. Has anyone else got any concepts of vets and money? Want to see my Ferrari? Yeah.
One of the reasons I came to the talk today was because I was wondering how it reconciles with the data that I look at, which shows vets' average income has actually fallen. It's one of the only professions in Australia. I don't mean in real terms, I mean in actual nominal dollars. Wages to the average vet have actually fallen. They used to earn about 140, 150% of average weekly earnings. Now they're only just above average weekly earnings. It's quite surprising.
Thank you. I didn't even need to say it. Thank you. That's great. And because there's some misconceptions there around that. And so this is my take on it. So I've been looking at this stuff. I've done practice for 11 years. I've done government for a lap over that for 12, 13 years. And you know, did some cool stuff in Papua New Guinea and Indonesia and the equine influenza, if anyone's horsey, I worked on that. So I've seen vets do all these kind of cool roles. And I've also seen the pay go down. And I've also fought against a pay cut that we got in the federal government. And I fought that for 3 enterprise agreements. And if you guys have been in government, like that's a big thing. And it's pretty rare for a sector in the APS to get a pay cut. So we got a pay cut after 10 years. So that's some pretty strange trends around the veterinary industry. And so these are the kind of things that I was thinking about. And these are the things that I've come up with. They don't like to advocate for themselves. They're very quiet. I scare them a bit. Our parents told us it was rude to talk about monies because there's that thing about being professional and you just expect if you do the work, the money will come. You shouldn't need to necessarily talk about money. Not very good at selling necessarily. One-on-one they're starting to learn because they have to, but they don't teach us that at uni. And we have a value as a shared group of altruism. And altruism is giving of ourselves. And this just got raised at Vet Conference in Perth last week. And I'm so glad it did because it's all starting to come together for me. And I'll just point out that we share these 3 traits with farmers as well. Okay, so if you think about Australian agriculture and the amazing food that we have, if you travelled recently, you know that our food is so much better than the UK, although they're better now that they've got European input. United States, like you just can't get a wholesome food there. That's not. My mum said that she got some pre-peeled boiled eggs in the United States, plastic wrapped. The last time she was there. So Australia is so blessed with amazing food. But our farmers get a bit of a hard time, and I worked in the federal government for a while, and I've seen the cuts, and I'm sitting in a room full of amazing people up there today talking about, what are we doing, training biosecurity people, but we're talking about an ever-reducing budget. So it's a real thing. The farmers don't like to talk about themselves, they just like to get on with it. Our parents told us it was rude to talk about money, so we don't. And then we have this value of giving. And then last week at the vet conference, it was really interesting because my friend Adele, who's in that very dark in that picture, is doing a PhD. I can't remember her base PhD, but this is an output of that about induced altruism. And actually, like when I worked in veterinary practice down the coast, and better not give them away, up in Newcastle and in Victoria, there was an expectation of me that I would give of my time. So you might have taken, you have a bird that's been hit by a car and you think it's, savable, you take it to the vet and you leave it there and we deal with it and there's usually no money involved and you just leave it with the vet and we take that on. So the vets then take that on in their own time without payment as well. So there's like this giving, and we love giving. We love giving to wildlife, we love animals. Most vets are vets because they love animals. But what happens is then when you're in a workplace and if your boss does that, because that's how she's always done it, and then you work for her and then you'd really like to get home because you've done your 40 or 50 hours that week, but then the case is there and it's an animal in pain and you can't really walk away. The culture of that place is to just keep working while the work comes in. So you give another 5 hours of your time and that's unpaid. Now I do a few things, so now I know how valuable my time is and I know that another 5 hours could be earning time. So I'll put that out there. We haven't explored it very far. It's a new concept even to the profession. Been living it and wondering about it, but we haven't given it a name. But we just did last week, so that's exciting. And why are these things a problem? So suicide, vets are 4 times more likely to take their own life. Okay, that's twice as much as Dentists, because I know it's a problem in other professions. So it's twice as much as doctors, pharmacists, dentists and nurses. It's mirrored in like human nurses, it's mirrored in our veterinary nurses. It's just tragic, like it's a real thing, it's starting to come out in popular media. The vet profession's known about it for 10 years, we've been openly talking about it. It's a real focus on, you know, resilience and, you know, that's good, and, you know, caring for your colleagues and asking what the problem is and getting around people. But the rate hasn't come down at all. So there's actually a problem where our really highly intelligent people, usually type A personalities, they usually got, it's about 97% you have to get in your year 12 TER to get into vet, so highly selected for hard-working, studious people. I was not that, I came in as a mature age student, I was much more loud and raucous than that, concentrated in school. And then they work really hard in vet school. They're among peers. I remember walking in and the kids were all talking to each other. I was a few years older, and they're saying, oh, you topped Australia in physics. Oh, and I came third, and you topped this, and you topped that. And I'm sitting there going, oh, I did a horse degree. Like a real country kid, like real from Canberra, but you know, totally different level. And they had so many places for people like me that could come in without getting in the top 97%. But why, it doesn't really help them if we're funneling through a process which is 5 years at least, now it's, some of them are 7 years, these courses, of intense competition that they're not allowed to talk about money really, and we're starting to do a bit more of that. And then they get out there, they've only ever wanted to be a vet, and they do it for 5 years, they're going broke, they're working day and night into the ground, not so much in Canberra, but because there's some after hours, you know, setups where you can send your animal to be cared for overnight. And then they get really depressed 5 years in because they're like, I'm not making any money. Personally, for me, I had a HEX debt that was going up rather than down after 5 years in practice. And it's a really tough job. Like you look at the breadth of things. Nobody brought their tiger to me, but you know, people brought different things to me all the time. So it's quite a difficult job, and you've got these other layers, you know, the bosses expect this and everything. So we don't know why, like, we don't know why, what the cause is. It's not simple. We just do A, B, and C, people stop killing themselves. But it's seen internationally around as well. It's not just Australia, it's around veterinary science. So, and the other part is we don't want to talk about suicide too much, because if anyone knows about suicide, you know that people highly identify with work. So as soon as you say suicide, and if the language for 10 years has been vets equals suicide, there's a high suicide rate, then our new grads and our new people in school, in the vet school, are hearing these words and they're doing an association with it. And culturally, I don't know if it was right or wrong, but 20 years ago, if someone committed suicide, you don't really talk too much about it because there's these theories in psychology that people pick up on that and they equate one with the other. And there is that risk. And we lost 2 students in Adelaide University Vet School over Christmas. And you know, these are young, bright kids, they've got a whole life ahead of them, and it's an issue. So I don't usually talk about suicide, but to a non-vet, you know, group, I thought I'd just raise it, and this is a real issue that we're facing. And we have money and misconceptions. So yeah, the reality of money. So that I just pulled these off the web this morning because I like to do things at the last minute. And average vet salary in Australia, $64,903 as of 4 AM this morning. So I don't know what time I was up. Dentist salary, $97,000. Physicians, it was harder to find physicians, they're a bit better at hardy pigs, but 107, 154, 102. So yeah, we've actually fallen backwards.
It's worse than that too, because the dentist, that average salary is only 30 hours a week.
Yeah.
They only work on average very part-time.
Which I think, before I change slides, is the future of vet actually, is that we need, for such a highly involved, demanding job, we need to actually charge more and do less hours. But how we relate that back to the 21-year-old cat who's going to have more and more issues and love you still in that space, we've got to resolve that. So yeah, so these are the kind of issues we're facing, plus put over that a changing world, like there's Dr. Google now, so you know, if you want to find out something, what do? You Google it. So you know, you've heard you know, your dog's drinking more water, you're in a group that loves Cavalier King Charles Spaniels, and so what do? You first? You Google it and you start talking to people, and Dr. Google will give you all kinds of information. And some of it's right, some of it's wrong, but it's a real thing. And so a person will walk back in with their King Charles Cavalier, and they will say, now I've talked to Dr. Google, and I'd just like to tell you what I think this dog's got. So, whoa, okay, welcome to my consult room where I'm the vet. But, you know, and I've done the study, but, okay, here you are. And then you're trying to say, okay, but just keep it to your animal. I know that's what the whole world says, but what's actually happening with your animal? So there's a whole range of other layers that are coming in and new skills that vets need. So with horse dentistry, it's been legislated that that can happen by non-veterinarians in some states. Okay, so there's lay people who, you know, 20 years ago when I was just rasping a teeth, it wasn't that technical, and so other people said, well, I could do that too. So there's whole pieces of vet science that other people are doing now. And then I work for I'm representing the Australian Veterinary Association, and I contract to them, consult to them, and yeah, so it's good that they could be part of it, but hang on, you don't want them with those things are big machines, what are they, electronic, what's the right word, for the machines, and sometimes you have to take out a whole tooth, sometimes you have to knock the horse out and remove a tooth for that animal, because otherwise it's in chronic pain. So yes, there's lots of things that lay people can do, but there's an element of welfare and safety, and human safety and animal safety, and then the people riding the horse later, you don't want it to have a sore tooth and buck you off, etc., that comes on top of that. But for the profession who hasn't been good at advocating, lots of people are coming in and saying, well, we'll do that. Okay, so there's all different topics. In Australia, we have a problem with legislation harmonisation, our states and territories. This is not only for our profession, I know this, that it would be much better if we could maybe just work as one Australia. We're not that big a population. But anyway, I'll get off my soapbox around that. But so the acts of veterinary science, which are covered by our legislation, are different in Canberra as to New South Wales. They're getting closer there, different from New South Wales to Victoria. So I can do something as a vet here, or more importantly, someone who's not a vet could do something legally in this state, but not in that state. So we need some harmonisation around that as well. And yeah, and agriculture and money stories. So as uncomfortable as I'm making them feel, I'm doing it because I love the veterinarians of the world, and because we need to learn how to talk about money, we need to learn how to talk about these social issues. We're not in it for the money. I asked the vets in the UK and Australia what they wanted me to tell an entrepreneurial and business audience. And I had this beautiful response. I have 100 responses, 50 in the UK. They must have woken up and Australia was asleep. And it was like, tell them that we love their animals. We do it because we love the animals. That's why we're vets. Tell them that we're not money hungry. Like, tell them to please be nice. Because some people, you know what people are like. Some people are just a bit full on, and then Dr. Google is right and you're wrong, or it's sad, it's a tragic case that they've lost their cat, and they're really emotionally pent up. There's lots of issues. And then others are saying, well, don't air all our dirty laundry, Emma. Please don't tell, because we're sorting it out, we're working on it. But I guess from my perspective, and as a career coach trying to help these vets navigate things, oh my God, if it's a choice between killing yourself and not vaccinating cats anymore, then come with me and I'll get you an amazing career. We'll help feed people in Papua New Guinea, we'll help the welfare of animals in India. Look, there's so many things that vets can do that are not about just being that, vet in clinical practice. And there's amazing careers, and I've never looked back since leaving clinical practice. It did hurt yesterday to pay for my cat to be spayed, but it's okay, I earn good money, it's fine. So it's just that kind of respect and understanding around the whole thing. So there's a mix of approaches. They don't want you to know they're hurting, but they are hurting, okay? And that they do love your animals, and that they are there for the right reasons. But then we need to learn as a profession how to protect ourselves against the corporates who see this induced altruism and who say, hey guys, you keep working, vets, and there's money to be made, but we'll take the money out of it. So there's all these kind of dynamics. So, yeah. And so that's why I've just gone a bit haywire, and I've left the government, and I've left the So clinical practice, I thought about going back, and I did go back, and it's kind of cool, but it's too many bosses. So I thought I'd come out and I'd be an entrepreneur and start to talk about all the cool things that I know about vets and start to showcase some of the cool careers that people are doing. They're working on antimicrobial resistance, and I'm really proud of them for all of the good work that they're doing, and I'm very glad to be able to tell you about it today. Thank you.
Thanks, Emma.
Thanks.
Thank you. Is there any questions or comments? Yeah.
So one of the things that a lot of these issues seem to all be tied together, and a lot of it I can kind of see there's a bit of a disconnect between when these people are going to university and when they then get thrust into whatever career they're doing. So I guess one of the questions I had is like, how much connection do people like yourself have with the university's administration or the classes while the students are at university and things like that?
Yeah, it's building up. So we didn't have too much of life skills or anything when I went through, but now they're starting to do, you know, like yesterday I was on an iPad, my head was on an iPad in Adelaide University with their second year students at the Doctor of Veterinary Medicine course down there, and they were doing innovation. They were doing innovation around business, and they were, you know, the customer experience. And then we bring these concepts in earlier. You know, we highly identify with the term veterinarian. So, you know, I'm a real vet, even though I haven't, you know, vetted for a few years in practice. But, you know, I'm also human, I'm also a mum, I'm also this and that. So we try and bring that kind of conversation to them. And oftentimes like this, people decided at 6 years of age that they were going to be a vet. And their mum or dad or someone said, "Vets are good people, you should be a vet." And they ran with it, and you know what I mean, they didn't really ever think about it more than that. I just need to be a vet. And then they get there, and they're like, "Oh, is this what it is?" So yeah, so it's coming in. It's also not just the university's responsibility, but yeah, does that help?
Yeah, it's interesting because the suicide rate thing corresponds as a corollary of all the other issues. In broader literature, there's a lot more studies now because the US has got a declining life expectancy, and it's as a result of a dramatic increase in people killing themselves through a variety of mechanisms. They're actually, and it's almost exclusively among white people. Hispanics and African Americans are actually increasing their life expectancy, whilst white people are declining even faster. So they said, well, why? And one of the primary studies that they've been looking at is it's a matching up between people's expectations for their life versus their lived experience. And so I guess where the university angle comes in is really, I'd say your role is pivotal in one of the key roles that you could assist with is reduction in suicides through lining up people's expectations with what the careers and jobs and what actually is out there for them, and not, I guess the message of putting it out there is not a second best. It's actually these are the real jobs, these are the real lives, these are, you know, so it's a great presentation. I can see a high value added.
That's good. Yeah, and that was my thing, was that we need to do something in the middle, and it's a cultural shift, you know, for people to be comfortable to see me talking about it, you know, and you know, rallying people to break open some of the thoughts around it and some of the misconceptions and stuff. Because social media, like, is pretty harsh on vets, and there's vet practices. A young vet stood up. She's a few years into owning her business, and she stood up at conference last week. She, unfortunately, a cat died under anaesthetic, and that's really tragic, and that happens, like, even in humans, people and cats and animals die under anaesthetic. But the owner decided that it was her fault. She took it to the board and it went nowhere, so they started a media crisis and paid hundreds of people to give her a 1-star rating on Google and totally crash her business, and hate stuff so much that they had to get AVOs for her and her nurse. And you know, so this is in Sydney. So you know, this kind of stuff, we're not prepped for that. So we've got, you know, I'm trying to be innovative. I'm trying to raise up a generation of innovative entrepreneurs to look forward and say, how are we going to deal with this stuff? You know, how, because medicine is hard. The true costs of medicine, we don't see much of in Australia. but medicine is expensive, and medicine has things we don't know in it, like we do lose animals, and yeah, so, but if you put that onto social media, and an upset person with the wrong intent, then that's a huge thing. So I'm sure the insurance company she was insured with helped her through that, and as she said to everyone in the audience, I'll help you if anyone, has this issue again. And I'm thinking, oh God, like you running a vet practice, I'll help you. I'll write it down as what to do, how to stop the fire, or what do you do first, kind of thing. So that I don't want people calling her at 4 a.m. while she's just vetted all day. The pressure that would have put her and her family under was just incredible. So.
Yeah, 'cause it's huge money they have to sink to get a practice started and stuff, and their whole life and
and their whole persona.
Yeah, they put themselves into it, right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, thank you for being a lovely audience.
I got a lot out of that.
Bye. That's because everybody will watch.